Story tonight, a string of suspicious deaths around the city yesterday. Law enforcement is investigating after 5 bodies were found, 4 of which were just a mile apart. 17's Perla Shaheen spoke with neighbors and tells us what they saw.
There were 4 dead bodies found here in Oildale and 1 in East Bakersfield just yesterday afternoon. Law enforcement won't tell us exactly what happened, but here's what neighbors had to say. It was a deadly Friday afternoon. 5 bodies found dead, leaving more questions than answers.
And bodies are just dropping left and right. That's not right.
The first 2 were found around noon in Oildale at a house on the corner of El Tejon and Hurl Avenue. According to family members, the 2 were relatives.
They had this blocked off, that blocked off behind me, and I mean there was at least a good 10, 15 detectives.
Kern County Sheriff's Office is still investigating what happened, but neighbors say they didn't hear any shooting.
No, there was no gunshots. There was nothing like that.
Hours later, at around 3 p.m., 2 other bodies were found at a house on Castaic Avenue, across the street from the Kern County Sheriff's Office. One neighbor says her fiance was building a fence outside at that time.
He was in the backyard and he heard a lady screaming, so he came out to the front yard and he saw a blonde pacing back and forth in front of her house screaming for help.
These bodies were found about a mile and a half away from the first 2, but KCSO says these deaths are not related. Neighbors speculate it was a murder-suicide, but we still have no confirmation from KCSO.
And they said that there was a man who killed himself as well as somebody else.
Then there was a 5th death in Bakersfield, near the Walmart on East Brundage Lane at around 7 p.m. Bakersfield police arrived to find a female with obvious signs of trauma who later died. Anyone with information on these 5 suspicious deaths is asked to call Kern County Sheriff's Department at 861-3110, or you could call Bakersfield Police at 327-7111. In Oildale, Perla Shaheen, 17 News.
Hey guys, there was Perla. Hey Perla. So, what I gathered from that was Friday was hard day. I also gathered that there was some neighbors speculating. I also gathered that Bakersfield is soliciting the public for help again. I also understand that with all of this going on, there's only so many detectives, there's only so many fluid available personnel that can, work the case of the boys, work the case of the other missings. I received an email, and I don't want to quote, but it is a startling number of actual missing people in Kern County. They just can't seem to keep a hold of their people there. They keep losing them. But the unfortunate thing is these major type cases keep happening, and you have to know that, they don't have an unlimited source of officers and detectives. So, these resources, they're going to be managed by, the degree of severity. Some of these things you have to know that seasoned detectives are going to, they're going to move, they're going to allocate the resources properly, guys. And that means, unfortunately, in my opinion, just based upon the way numbers work, the more cases you have, the less dedicated detectives you'll have handling, major cases. So this, in my opinion, is not a good look for the Orrin and Orson West case. This sort of stuff actually just hampers it. It makes it, it puts a time delay on all of this, and during time delays on the case, the internet is able to pipe up and create, more havoc and strain on the case. So I don't want to speak too much on anybody else, but there's just a lot of stuff going on. I just can't even believe that these poor boys were we're kind of the vent valve, if you will, for a lot of people's messiness. Mine as well. I'm not exempt. It's for whatever reason, it's, this bickering and this arguing and this, exposing and all of this is designed in to the whole scheme, guys. I just can't, I get so frustrated. One of the things, guys, that really frustrates me is when I do take the time to watch something that people send to me over and over and over. When I take the time to watch it, I go over and I just see certain other people that are behaving differently on these other channels and stuff, and it's about cyberbullying, and and it's like, man, I don't know how to stop it other than to just stop the YouTubing. And I, like myself, like so many others, I like to be able to have a voice and be able to direct it properly and interact with people, intelligent people, smart people, all the in between. I love all the interactions. I am growing a tougher skin in regards to the way I react to the really super negative or racial comments, or there's just so much going on. There's just so much. We live in a terrible time right now. People take on and adopt different behaviors, based upon being enclosed in the house. And, there's just a lot of different aspects of life that they're not the same as they used to be. And this ripple in our, and you could call it a ripple, you could call it a rip. I don't know what you call this pandemic, and the way that it causes and affects everything else. We have a whole generation of children right now, 1 through 12, even into college, that unfortunately, kind of missed a year of school, right? I know there was a summer mixed in, but over a span of a year, these kids have missed a lot of school, and so that is definitely going to have a ripple. The economy's been rippled. Marriage has been rippled, church has been rippled. Guys, I don't, I usually am not the person that curses a lot, and I have a really good friend named Curtis, and he's a deacon at a church that I attend, and I attend the deacons meeting every Sunday, and it's a group of like 6 or 8 of us, and I'm usually, I'm always, the only white guy, and I'm able to bring a different flavor to our deacons meeting, and them guys all love me, and I love all them, and I miss those guys, right? Because the church is like one of the very first things they shut down here in Dallas. I don't know about anywhere else. I can't speak on it, but here, like, I've been away from my guys at church for a long time, and all of that, it's the ability for negativity to kind of take the forefront in your life when I can't speak for anyone else, but when I have these moments where I can take time to kind of research and do different things, it becomes less and less that I'm able to research, because for whatever reason, and I believe it's just my ego probably, it's hard for me to get past that front, that campaign it's gonna always be against you, right? Like, in certain communities, there's just a lot of negativity. And if you happen to be in one of those communities, or you find yourself drawn to those communities, or you have a passion for the cause that leads you to that community, and then you get tied up in the community, you're gonna always have someone that is, at least someone that's going to latch on to you for whatever reason, and they're going to become obsessed with you, and they're going to try to demean you all the while. You know, these people that are great cyberbullies are not real life tough guys, right? You know, there just isn't enough hours or years in life for you to be a great big tough guy, alpha male, and, you know, a very successful troll. So, you know, I salute everyone, because it takes all types. And I think that I want to believe that for the most part, all humans are inherently good, and that however you behave on YouTube is not the absolute, you know, the biblical scripture in regards to how your life is described off of YouTube. You know, I try to be very transparent, and with my transparency, you know, you've got people that think that, you know, snitching is telling on a drug dealer that's in your community. I don't care, right? Like, I don't actually care what people think, right? Like, you know, we're in a pandemic, and typically I would be away from the house a lot more. So being here, it was very easy to focus on the dealings going on over at the drug house, the duplex. And, you know, any information that is out there about me trying to help clean up the neighborhood where, you know, my children play, that's all stuff that I had out there already. I was just told by, you know, like some PR type people for YouTube people. They're like, man, listen, if you want to, you know, come into a cause and help look for missing boys, then you got to remove all that stuff. And I wish that I hadn't deleted all of it, because I had a whole playlist called the Dope House Chronicles. And it was all of me putting up signs, and all of me, you know, harassing the drug dealers over there. And, you know, it became this thing, like me, you know, chasing them around in the car and pulling up at the light and, you know, filming them. And, you know, that was like before, you know, before it turned physical, right? That was when I was still just trying to, you know, run them out by myself. And, you know, the issue was that they're squatters, right? And so they have squatter rights. It's been a year of pandemic, almost to the day here in Texas. And, you know, for that whole period of time, they're not doing any evictions. You know, we've had a lot of issues with DMV stuff, you know, car registrations, you know, the whole lot, like a lot of other cities have. And, you know, I couldn't say what the activity over there was like before I moved here, because the people that are there now aren't the people that were there then. It's just been a constant rollover of new people, right? You know, there was a period of time where there was a whole bunch of new faces over there, and everyone's outside and they're all confused because everything's shut off and the doors are locked. And, you know, somebody that knows the hustle, I allegedly, you know, put a posting on Craigslist for rooms for rent in a duplex, and it's a duplex. There's 3 rooms on each side, and so, you know, in some cases they were putting two people, like a couple, in a room. Then it went to where they were renting the rooms out for $25 a night, and it just became this whole thing. And during different stages of my involvement with all the people that are there currently, I've tried to help all of them get clean from the drugs, you know, because I feel like I know enough to try to help someone help themselves. You know, I realize I can't help anyone, actually. I can just try to give them the confidence and the motivation to, you know, try to get up and help themselves. And that's, you know, if you know that going into it, that you can't help anyone successfully. Now, don't get me wrong, you can help someone change a tire or a light bulb, or, you know, pump gas for them. You can do things for someone in the moment, but as far as like longevity, like you just can't, you know? And so yeah, guys, you know, it's been a constant battle with the people that live there. And yeah, you know, my whole life I was a renegade for a lot of my life, I was a drug dealer, and I was all these things, carried guns, and I don't think I have the face of an angel, but when my son was born 3 years ago, I stopped everything. I really liked the codeine syrup, and I really liked the Xanaxes, and I really liked anything that made me feel differently than what I did sober. And when that little boy came, life shifted, the paradigm shifted, and I became a whole different person, for the better. People don't hide their wallets, or mom doesn't put her purse up, that metaphorically, right? So I'm blessed. I'm so blessed. I don't have any financial strains whatsoever. We have no financial strains. It's just, we've been so blessed. No one in my immediate core family that lives underneath my roof, none of us, knock on wood, have, gotten the COVID. We've all had, those days where you wake up not feeling well and you're like, oh goodness, I feel like I have the COVID. Thank God no one in my family has gotten the COVID. None of us have had a vaccine. We're just living on faith. And during all of this time, my issue has never been about triggers for drugs or anything else of the underworld. It was more about my temper. It was more about being involved in things that I feel God pulled me into. About a month or a month and a half ago, I was at Popeye's Chicken right up the street here, and I ran into a friend, and we were talking right behind by the drive-through, and there, I heard a series of shots, and we happened to look over, and there was two trucks facing each other, and one of the gentlemen was shot. And so for whatever reason, I want to say God was working in me. I immediately drove over there, and they were putting the one gentleman into the truck. The other truck peeled out before I got over there. And so everyone's out of the truck, putting the guy in the truck, and then they get him in the truck, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Do you need 911? And they took off. And so I was in the Lolo, the Civic, the lowrider, and I'm chasing them because I don't know, I didn't really know what to do in that situation. So I was chasing them, and they didn't make it very far, and they pulled over, and I pulled up right behind them, and everyone bailed out of the truck, and the one gentleman that they were putting in the truck right up the street, he jumps out and he starts to run down the alley. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to make sure everybody's okay. After the fact, it was relayed to me that, they potentially thought that I was involved in whatever had happened because I was there so quickly, and then chased them, trying to make sure everything was okay. And it wasn't like a high-speed chase, guys. It was like from one parking lot across the street into another parking lot, and then they parked and bailed out. Well, the one guy that I saw them putting him in the truck, he was falling down at this point, and then he would get up, and then he would try to run, and then he'd fall down, and that's when I just stopped. I was like, okay, well, this dude he's hit. And so, yeah, when the police got there, what happened was that people from the Popeyes and around the area where the shooting happened, they called in as well. And they said that I was involved in the shooting. And so when I got there, I was like, man, hold on, man. You know what I mean? I saw everything that happened. And so, long story short, they're like, okay, I wasn't, a persons of interest or anything. And I had a video of most of all of everything after, the chase part. Right. So that's kind of that's the gist of the audio that you hear is from that situation. I was actually on the phone on a FaceTime with a female YouTuber involved in the Orrin and Orson West case. And she clearly screen recorded it, which is cool because nothing I've been doing has been a secret to anyone in Dallas. It's just nobody else's business in California or Florida or, right? It's like, you know, if I'm doing something that somebody in Dallas has a problem with, then they would have confronted me a long time ago, and I can move freely and do whatever I want. Nobody has a problem. Nobody ever told me that I'm a hip hop music producer. No one ever told me, oh, Benny, bro, you can't be jamming up these pedophiles and then turning them into the police and still be over here doing it. Man, I can do whatever I want. I'm a grown ass man. People will say what they want to say. And it you know, makes me know, never mind, right? So the only issue that I was upset about when people said I was a confidential paid informant was the ideal that that I did it in secret from YouTube and that I was being paid for it. That's not what it is. I'd tell you if I was being paid for it. That's not what it is. And so again, guys, there can't be a separate, you know, street code for a white dude that does the same thing that a black dude would do, because, you know, the deal is, guys, is that snitching, right? This is like the current 2021 ideal of snitching, right? The 2021 ideal of snitching is as long as you're not snitching on somebody that you did a crime with to try to get your time shaved down. That's snitching, right? So if me and, you know, Johnny Q run around the corner and rob the fucking store, and they catch up to one of us and one of us talks about it first in order to get our time cut down, like, that's snitching. But if you just get tired of living around motherfuckers, pardon my French, that are putting condoms and syringes and masturbating outside and all this other strange shit when you got 2 babies, guess what, man? I got a beautiful daughter, and I got a beautiful son. Both of them live with me. I have other children. These 2 live with me. And I'll be damned if I have to explain, like, let me tell you guys something. After my daughter and I and my son went on the walk and we found the condom, my daughter had a whole lot of extra questions, because she's smart. A whole lot of extra questions about why there would be a needle and a condom together. And I'll be honest with you, my wife and I, we weren't ready to have that talk with my daughter. We weren't ready to explain to her, because we've sheltered her from a lot of this crap in the world. She didn't even know about what, like, a hooker was. Like, not a high class lady friend. I mean, like, just a street hooker. The kind of gal that would allow someone to come and be in a situation with her where he'd throw his condom out on the street in front of my house with his syringe. So after I explained to her with my wife what we had encountered outside, my wife and I, we put my daughter in the car, because she still was having a hard time understanding what was a woman that would just stand somewhere and try to solicit men for nominal amounts of money for sex. We took her to an area in North Dallas where it's just a hotbed for it. And I'm talking about a place where you can pull up and they just run up to the car and try to get in, and, like, you got to keep the door locked, right? Like, real walkers, you know? And she understood. And I could tell that she was just, like, real disappointed in life, that it's like that, you know? And it was like explaining to your small child, you know, that there's no Santa Claus. Like, when you explain to your daughter that has no idea about what hookers are, the existence of a hooker, when they figure it out at 15, it's a sad day. It's not something that, you know, she could have been exposed to, you know, at a later date when she was much older and was able to gauge, you know, sexual ideology. She can't gauge that now. And so we had to have a really hard, tough talk, and that led me to completely eradicating the meth and the heroin dealer that lived 80 feet from me in a school zone. right in front of a neighborhood watch sign. So when I moved here and all these things happened, I reached out to the city. They don't even have that. That sign is old, evidently, or it's just a deterrent because they don't have an assigned leader of the neighborhood watch here in my neighborhood. So I appointed myself. I went around to all the neighbors over this past year. If I saw you out watering your lawn, I went over and talked to you in regards to this house and the people that come there and the things that they do. And there isn't a person over here that has a problem with anything I do. There again, I went so hard on that drug house, they got restraining orders, right? They filed for multiples, but it only made sense, the judge said, to allow one harassment charge to keep me away from there. Multiples didn't make it any different. It was like, serve him up one, keep him away. And it did. I got 2 harassment charges. And then that was the end of that. And now it's just, probably a month ago, I saw the heroin dealer, the Tongo Blast Cat. I see him at the store and he's got the little mace around his neck on a little string, and he sees me get out of the car and he's there with this broad. And, I don't know what they got going on, but he sees me in the reflection of the window because he's got his back to the parking lot, right? And he sees me walking up on the window because then I immediately start talking shit, right? Because I'm ready to throw down with the heroin dealer, little short Mexican cat. He's always with the Tongo Blast shit, and man, fuck him. I'm not worried about none of that shit, bro. None of that shit. I live right here, right? Like, bro, come do something, bro. I don't, none of that bothers me, bro. Right? I advocate for children and I advocate for my community. I feel like you can't make a change if you don't make a change where you live at. I'm not doing this in somebody else's community. I'm attacking a house that's 80 feet from my house that's attacking my community with dangerous narcotic drugs, addictive drugs. I also know the power of methamphetamine. That was my drug of choice for a while. Codeine, methamphetamine, right? A good mix with a lot of marijuana in between, right? And so living that close to a house while I'm in the infancy of, I'm 3 years sober, right? I was 2 years sober when I moved in here. I've been here a year. I've been living across the street over there from a meth house for this long and stayed sober. So I had a choice. My children and my sobriety or everything else in misery. I chose my family. I chose my family. I wish a motherfucker would try to convince somebody else that that's a bad thing. You sorry bitch, you. It is what it is, man. Remember, guys, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Oh, yeah. Let me talk about the video that came in front of all this, right? I don't know about it, guys. Something's going on in Kern County. Big time. Comments, questions, concerns, leave them in the box below. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Again, guys, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.